Welcome to this deep dive into the world of de novo drug design. We've got a whole stack of articles and research all about how computers are being used to create new medicine, like from scratch.
Yeah, it's really a field that's exploding with potential,
Yeah.
especially if you're in pharma, biotech, or thinking about investments. We're talking about going beyond tweaking what we've already got and building new molecules, like purpose-built to tackle diseases.
It does sound pretty sci-fi, but it seems like it's becoming a reality, right?
It is.
And there are two main approaches that we should talk about, right? Structure-based and ligand-based. What's the difference?
Okay, so think about structure-based design, like a 3D puzzle, right? You know the shape of what you're targeting, usually some kind of protein. And then a computer uses that info to design a molecule that fits right into the active site of the protein.
So it's like finding that one piece that jams the whole thing up.
Exactly.
This article mentions some of the tools like LDDI and ProLigand. They analyze the shape to pinpoint those binding sites, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, ligand-based design, that's when we don't really have a clear picture of what the target looks like, but we know other molecules that bind to it.
Yeah.
They might not be perfect drugs themselves, but they're a starting point.
Gotcha. So you're using those as inspiration to guide the design.
Exactly. So the computer analyzes the features and tries to make something new that has those same key characteristics, but with better props. So like maybe stronger binding, less toxic, or it's absorbed better. There are tools for this too, like topetase and synopsis.
Okay, so two approaches, both powerful, but things get really interesting when we bring in artificial intelligence, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about deep reinforcement learning, DRL. It's like a total game changer. Like we're teaching AI to be like super chemists, designing and optimizing molecules crazy fast.
So instead of building atom by atom, AI can explore all the possibilities, finding these hidden gems for new medicine.
That's a great put it. Yeah, these DRL systems can deal with really complex chemical spaces, like way beyond what humans can handle. And they're learning these intricate patterns, the relationships between structure and how it works in the body, uncovering stuff we might totally miss.
And these AI systems are guided by certain goals, like they're not just randomly mixing stuff together.
Right. We train them to focus on desirable properties, like those good 80-met profiles, things that are actually synthesizable, stuff that we can actually make in the lab.
Oh, that's important. You don't want a wonder drug that can't be made.
Exactly.
So it's not just about how well it binds.
Right.
It's about all these other crucial things.
Yeah, it's a way more holistic approach to brain design, and that's really why AI is making such a difference.
The source material mentions all these complex neural networks. What's that all about?
Think of those as like different thinking styles for the AI. So you've got recurrent neural networks, RNNs. Those are great for sequential data, like smile string, which is a way to represent the molecule structure as a line of text.
Okay.
They're good at analyzing and generating the structures step by step. Then there are convolutional neural networks, CNNs. They're really good at pulling out features from 2D representations of molecules, like how our brains process visuals. They're good at recognizing patterns and how those patterns relate to what the molecule does.
Interesting.
And then there are generative adversarial network, or GANs. You might have heard of them from those deepfake videos. They're used in drug design too. They basically set two neural networks against each other. One generates new molecules and the other tries to tell if it's real or AI made.
Little AI arms.
Yeah, exactly. And finally, you have autoencoders, or AE. These learn these really compressed representations of the molecules, like the most important. They're great for generating new molecules with desired properties or finding existing ones that fit what you're looking for.
So lots of different approaches, but all aimed at designing better drug. The source material highlights some pretty amazing DRL tools that are already making a difference, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the examples?
Well, there's Release, which is great for designing chemical libraries. Instead of making random molecules, it can make libraries of molecules that are likely to be drug-like, synthesizable and effective against a certain target.
Okay, very cool.
Then there's Deep Scaffold, which is great for making molecules based on specific scaffolds. Those are like common frameworks you find in a lot of drugs. And then there's Malaikal, which is really cool. It combines AI and those classic algorithms to create 3D models of the drug. So you can actually see how it interacts with the target at the atomic level.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's not just designing them, it's like creating blueprints of how they work. And one more example that I think will be really interesting, especially for people listening, is COG. It's designed to come up with potential drugs for COVID-19.
Oh, wow. So it's being used to tackle one of the biggest health challenges we've had in recent years.
It really showcases how fast and adaptable these AI methods are.
It sounds like de novo drug design is really going to revolutionize the pharma and biotech industry.
But potential is huge. Like, imagine cutting down the time and the cost of development, tackling diseases that were once impossible to treat, creating personalized therapies for people. That's the promise of all.
It's definitely a future worth investing in. But with anything powerful, there are challenges, right? The source material keeps talking about building trust in these methods. What does that mean? mean?
It means being transparent about how these models work. It means rigorously testing their predictions, making sure they're safe and they actually work.
So it's not enough to just have powerful AI. It's got to be responsible AI.
Exactly. And that's where things like open innovation and collaboration become really important.
The more we share, the faster we can move forward.
Right.
But before we dive into those issues, I think it's important to understand how we got here. What were those key steps that led to AI in drug design?
Well, to get that, we need to go back to the roots, to the conventional methods that were.
All right, let's take a step back. Where do we start?
Well, one of the fundamental concepts is the use of evolutionary algorithms.
Evolutionary algorithms. So this is where things get all Darwinian.
You could say that they were inspired by natural selection. Imagine you've got a whole population of potential drug molecules. Each one's like a digital chromosome with its structure encoded.
Okay, I'm picturing a virtual petri dish, and these digital molecules are competing to be the next big drug.
Exactly. And these molecules are put through all these tests, like docking simulations to see how they bind, predictive models to figure out their properties, and, things like drug likeness.
Drug likeness? What does that even mean?
It's basically how likely it is to be a good drug. So things like solubility, stability, how easily it's absorbed, like weeding out the ones that aren't going to cut it.
So it's like a molecular obstacle course.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And the ones that do well, those are the parents. They undergo mutation where parts of their structure change randomly, and crossover where they swap elements with other top performers.
And then you have a whole new generation.
Right.
Competing based on their property. It's fascinating how it mimics evolution to optimize drug design. The source material mentions some tools like LigBuilder and LEA3D that use those evolutionary algorithms.
Right.
What were their strengths?
Well, one of the great things about them is that they can explore a huge chemical space even without knowing all the details of the target. They generate a lot of different molecules, and some of them could have surprising, really beneficial properties.
It's a bit like throwing a dart at a dartboard blindfolded and hitting the bullseye.
Maybe a little oversimplified, but you get the idea. They can find solutions that more targeted approaches might miss.
But even with those algorithms, there were limitations.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The source material talked about some of the challenges.
One of the biggest ones was whether or not you could actually synthesize the molecule. You could design something amazing on paper, but if it's too complex or just plain impossible to make in a lab,
It's used.
yeah, exactly, like a blueprint for a building that just defies physics.
The article mentions some scoring systems, like the SA and SC scores, to assess this, right?
Yeah, those are ways to estimate how hard it would be to actually make the molecule. They look at things like how many steps are involved in the synthesis, are the starting materials even available, and is it going to cause unwanted side reactions?
So it's got to be makeable, not just bind well. And this is where AI, specifically DRL, starts to really shine.
Exactly. DRL systems can be trained to consider that from the very beginning. They learn from massive databases of chemical reactions, known molecules, and they start to get an intuition for what works chemically and what doesn't.
It's like it's learning the language of chemistry, right?
Yeah, exactly. The rules of the game.
Yeah.
It's a huge advantage over those older methods.
And it's not just about whether we can make it. It's about predicting those other properties like ADMET and even potential toxicity.
Absolutely.
We talked about ADMET earlier, but how can AI help design safer drugs?
That's where toxicogenomics comes in. That's the study of how chemicals affect genes and cellular processes.
Okay.
By putting that data into those DRL models, we can predict potential toxicity much earlier.
So we're not finding out something is toxic way late in the game.
Exactly.
The AI can raise flags right from the start.
Yeah.
That's got to be huge for drug development, saving time, money, and maybe even lives.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a total game changer.
It sounds like AI is making drug discovery more proactive. We're anticipating and addressing problems before they even happen.
Yeah.
The source material has some great examples of DRL in action. One that really stood out was using it to tackle COVID-19.
Oh, yeah, that was a big...
The speed of DRL was key in finding new treatment. There was that one tool, CogMol. It was used to design potential drugs that targeted specific proteins on the virus, the ones that replicate.
Right, basically trying to find its weak spot.
And what kind of results?
Well, it found some really promising candidates, and some of them are drugs that are already approved for other things, so potentially you could repurpose them for COVID, which could mean getting treatments to people much faster.
That's incredible, shortening that development timeline so much.
Yeah.
And there was another tool, Molecular, being used to design 3D drugs, even for complex targets.
Yeah, like the SARS-CoV-2 main protease. It's a great example of how these AI-powered approaches are speeding up the fight against new diseases.
It's not just about speed, though. There was also that deep Q-learning network.
Yes, for designing inhibitors.
So many different AI tools being developed, refined, and used for drug discovery. But with all that, there's this big question the source material keeps coming back to. How do we know we can trust these methods?
It's a very good question, and it's one that regulatory bodies like the European Medicines Agency are really concerned about. As these AI methods methods become more and more advanced and they start to create drugs that go into clinical trials, we need to be absolutely sure that we understand them and that their predictions are reliable.
So it can't just design drugs. We need to be able to trust what it designed. What are people doing to address this challenge?
One big thing is transparency. The people who make these AI models need to be open about how they train them, what data they use, and how they check that their predictions are accurate.
So it's like showing everyone what's under the hood so we can understand how it works, see its limits, and build that trust.
Exactly.
The source material also talked about validation.
Right. Validation is about checking the AI's predictions against real-world data.
Making sure it works in the real world, not just on paper.
Exactly. But transparency and validation are just the beginning. The source material also talked about the importance of open innovation.
That makes sense because the more we work together,
The faster we can move forward.
But let's switch gears for a second. While AI is definitely changing drug design, there's another thing the source material mentioned that I thought was really interesting. It's about looking beyond just how well the molecule binds to the target.
You mean those other properties like diversity, novelty, and even chemical?
Yeah, exactly. We don't want to just make tiny changes to existing drugs.
Right.
We want these AI systems to discover something really new.
Exactly. We want to expand our knowledge to find those truly unique therapies. And that's where those measures of diversity and novelty come in. We want to know how different these molecules are from what we already have.
It's like exploring a whole new world, looking for something that's never been seen before. What about chemical beauty? What does that mean?
It's more than just how it looks. It's about how elegant the structure is, its symmetry, its simplicity. Those things can have a big impact on how the molecule works, the drug.
So a good drug should be effective and well-designed.
Yes, and AI can help with that. It can learn to appreciate not just the power of the molecule, but also its finesse, its subtlety.
It's like AI is becoming a critic of chemistry, like a wine connoisseur.
Yeah, something like that. But let's bring it back to the human side of things. We've talked about transparency, validation, open innovation, all that. But what about us, the scientists?
Are we obsolete now?
Absolutely not. In fact, I think our expertise is more important now than ever. AI is a tool, a powerful one, but just a tool. We, the scientists, the researchers, we're the ones who guide those tools, interpret the results, make the big...
So it's not AI replacing us, it's AI amplifying what we can do.
Exactly. It's a partnership, collaboration. We need to see AI as something that can help us achieve what we thought was impossible.
That's a powerful message. Embrace AI, learn its strengths and weaknesses, and use it to move your research forward. But with all the progress we've talked about, I have to wonder, what's next? What are the big mysteries that are driving this field forward?
Well, that's the best part about science. Every answer leads to more questions, new things to explore. And in de novo drug design, those possibilities are...
So what's on the horizon? What are those big leaps everyone's working toward?
Well, one area that's really exciting, especially if you're thinking about invest, is the combination of de novo drug design with things like quantum computing and personalized medicine.
Quantum computers designing drug, like just for you, based on your DNA. It's like these sci-fi becoming reality.
It might sound futuristic, but it's closer than you think. Quantum computers could change everything. We could simulate how molecules interact at a level that's just impossible with regular computers. Imagine knowing exactly how a drug will work in your body based on your genes.
It's like having a virtual you to test the drugs on.
Exactly.
What kind of impact could that have on drug development?
Huge implications. We could design drugs that are more effective, safer, and with fewer side effects, all because they're made just for you.
So we're moving towards personalized medicine, treatments as unique as the people getting. But the source material also mentions some challenges, right?
Oh yeah. One of the big ones is that we need better predictive models. AI has come a long way, but we still don't know everything about how genes, proteins, and drugs all work together. We need models that can accurately predict not just if it'll work, but also safety and side effects.
So it's not enough to just design a drug that works. It has to work safely for each person.
Exactly. And it's something researchers are working on all the time. They're refining those algorithms, adding more data to make those predictions more reliable. Another challenge, and this is important for companies trying to get these new drugs approved, is regulatory acceptance.
That makes sense. As AI gets better at designing drugs, we need to make sure these new methods are transparent, reliable, and meet those highest standards of safety. How are regulators handling this?
They're watching closely, and they're starting to develop guidelines for evaluating these AI methods. Transparency is key. Companies have to show how their AI works, what data they use, and how they've tested their predictions.
It's about building that trust, right?
Right.
Both within the scientific community and with the public. We need to be upfront about the limits of AI. It's still early days.
Definitely. But the potential potential benefits are so huge, it's a journey worth taking. De novo drug design, powered by AI, could bring in a whole new era of medicine. We could cure diseases we thought were impossible, treat and improve human health in ways we never imagined.
It's definitely exciting to be a part of this field. The message for everyone listening is clear. De novo drug design is a revolution, and you can be a part of it.
The big takeaway here is that this field is moving fast. Stay informed, stay curious. The future of drug discovery is being written right now, and it's an incredible time involved.
So where do we go from here? What are the next steps?
Well, one thing that's really exciting, especially for investors, is how de novo drug design can be combined with other technologies like quantum computing and personalized medicine.
Yeah, that's something I want to hear more about.
It's like, imagine quantum computers designing drugs just for you, based on your DNA.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does, but it's closer than you might think. Quantum computers could totally revolutionize drug discovery. We could simulate those molecular interactions in a level of detail that's just impossible with regular computers. Predict exactly how a drug will work in your body, all based on your unique genetic.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. You're basically testing the drug on a virtual version of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So what would that mean for how we develop drugs?
The impact would be huge, for the whole pharmaceutical and biotech industry. We could design drugs that are, not just more effective, but also safer, fewer side effects because it's all tailored to you.
It's like medicine becoming truly personalized. But the source material did point out that there are still some big challenges to overcome.
Oh, for sure. One of the biggest ones is that we need those predictive models to get even better. AI's come a long way, but we still have a lot to learn about how genes, proteins, and drugs all interact. We need models that can predict, not just if a drug will work, but how safe it is, what side effects it might cause, and all of that for each individual.
Right, so it's not just about designing something that works. It has to be safe for everyone.
Right, and that's something researchers are working on. They're constantly trying to improve those algorithms, adding more data to make those predictions as reliable as possible. Another big challenge, especially for companies who want to bring these AI-designed drugs to market, is getting approval from regulatory bodies.
Yeah, that makes sense. As this technology gets more advanced, we need to be sure that these new methods are transparent, that they're reliable, and that they meet the highest standard, especially when it comes to safety. So how are those regulatory agencies dealing with this?
Well, they're definitely keeping a close eye on all this. Agencies like the European Medicines Agency are starting to develop guidelines for how to evaluate these AI-driven methods, and transparency is a big part of that. Companies need to be able to show very clearly how their AI worked, what data was used to train it, and how they tested those predictions to make sure they're accurate.
So it's all about building trust, right? Making sure everyone feels confident about this new technology.
Absolutely. We need to be open about the limitations, acknowledge that we're still in the early stages of all of this, and, there are going to be some challenges along the way.
But the potential benefits are huge.
Oh, they are.
So it's a path worth exploring. It sounds like de novo drug design, powered by AI, could really change the future of medicine, curing diseases that we thought were incurable.
It's an exciting time to be a part of all this.
It really is. So for everyone listening, scientists, biotech leaders, VCs, the message is pretty clear, right? This isn't just some passing trend. It's a revolution, and it's a revolution that you can be a part of.
The most important thing is to stay informed, stay curious. The future of drug discovery is happening right now, and it's a pretty amazing time to be involved.
Well, that's our deep dive for today. We hope you found it as interesting as we did. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one designing the next life-saving therapy.